Hey, Launch family, welcome back to this season of Dare to Launch. We have some amazing guests for you and some amazing topics that we're going to be diving into. But today we're kicking it off with a bang because we are interviewing Mike Michalowicz. You may already know that name. He's the author of Profit First, Clockwork, The Pumpkin Plan, and his newest book, All In: How Great Leaders Build Unstoppable Teams. We cover a lot of ground in this interview. We go into his story as an entrepreneur and author, how he got inspired to write his latest book, how the pandemic exacerbated all these challenges in team dynamics. We go through the journey of becoming a competent leader and how to implement something called dream management into your business and how that can create highly engaged and awesome teams. We also go into how you attract, onboard, and retain amazing people, and a fun taco break is in there as well. I know you're going to love this episode, but I also know you're going to love a lot of the episodes this season. So here's what I want you to do. If you're not already, go to the top of your Spotify app and click that plus sign. Or if you're in the Apple podcast, go hit follow. Or if you're just watching this on YouTube, go hit subscribe. Okay. You don't want to miss any of these episodes, and they're going to be great. So thanks for listening, everybody. And without further ado, here is today's Dare to Launch with Mike Michalowicz.
What we're compelled to teach, I've learned, at least for myself, is actually what I need to learn the most. I took a big sticky note, one of those big, huge post notes, and covered over so I could do the grand reveal. And shamefully, I queued up Eye of the Tiger by Survivor. I've never met a person that dreams of one day becoming a janitor. She goes, but everyone has a dream. If I help them learn and expand, they may leave. And that's true. But if you don't help people grow, they will stay because they have to stay. Good leaders make people believe in them. Great leaders make people believe in themselves.
Hello, Launch family. So happy to have you listening to this week's episode of Dare to Launch. My name is Chris, and today our topic is going to be recruiting, training, and retaining unstoppable teams. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Mr. Jeff Walker.
Hey, folks. How you doing?
And today we have a very special guest. He's the entrepreneur behind 3 multi-million-dollar companies. He is the creator of Profit First, which is used by hundreds of thousands of companies across the globe to drive profit. He is a former small business columnist for the Wall Street Journal and business makeover specialist for MSNBC, and is a popular main stage keynote speaker and many entrepreneurial topics. He's also the author of 9 powerful business books, including Clockwork, The Pumpkin Plan, his best-selling book, Profit First, and his newest book, which I am very excited to talk to him about today, All In: How to Create and Build Unstoppable Teams. Welcome to Dare to Launch.
It's a joy to be with you, and Jeff, good to see you both. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Mike, I'm happy to see you. It's been, 6 months, something like that.
At Don's place.
Yeah. For everyone out there, I've been getting to know Mike increasingly well over the last few years. We've been on each other's shows. Mike had me out to a mastermind he runs, which is super cool. And he's just a fantastic thinker and one of the truly great humans in the business. So Mike, stoked for this call. Excited for this topic that you've taken on now in your new book.
I'm pumped. And I'll tell you, if you have me back, it's because you tolerate my quote unquote humor. So you saw that, the reveal of that over at Don's place when we were together. So I'm stoked you invited me back. I didn't know if I'd pass that test. So thank you.
No, it's all good. All good. Yeah, it was fun watching you in front of a room trying to fit 3 days of content and topics into one day.
Yeah, it was a little tight. Yeah.
It's always a challenge.
Next year's going to be more efficient.
Mike, when did you start working on this book? So we're going to talk a lot about teams. And this is Mike's new book right here. All In: How Great Leaders Build Unstoppable Teams. And so when did you start working on this?
Yeah, it's probably 2 to 3 years prior to the pandemic. So now 6, 7 years ago. And a typical book for me is about a 5-year endeavor. I do produce quite a few books because I'm working on them in parallel. But what happened was I was hearing back from readers, say, hey, Mike, I tried Profit First, and hopefully in many cases I'm more profitable. and they were telling me what their challenge is now. And the challenge pre-pandemic was, I'm having trouble recruiting. I can't find people. They're not staying with me, or they're underperforming. Then the pandemic hit, and it was those problems exasperated by like a 15-fold. What was interesting to me, Jeff, was that what was before a desire now became a demand. I desired to have flex time. I desired to work remotely. The pandemic hits, now I demand flex time. I demand to work remotely. So during the pandemic, it was clear that this book had to become my absolute priority. I didn't finish it then. I started testing. I own some businesses, and we test out in our companies and the concepts that work and stick here. Then we deploy with larger businesses and other businesses. If they work and stick there, then it constitutes that can fit within the book. So I finished it all up, and it came out this past January.
It feels like, in reading the book, it feels like your journey towards becoming competent. Forget great, becoming competent at leading, and not, which isn't to say you're not a great leader, but it is such a hard thing to be a great leader. But that journey is, it sounds like you and I might have had similar paths. Like we weren't natural.
No,
born
I'm far from it. I'm far from it.
Leaders. And I'm just going to leave it there.
Yeah, I'm not natural at it. And what I found, and this is a bold statement, but I wonder if your path is the same. I suspect it is. Ultimately, Chris, Jeff, anyone listening, what we're compelled to teach, I've learned, at least for myself, is actually what I need to learn the most. And I see this play out for many people. So perhaps that's even true for your experiences. I'm not a great leader. I aspire to be, but I'm not. And to your point, I wanted to first gain some degree of competence, and then some degree of excellence, and ultimately mastery. And I'm not there yet. But the big reveal for me has happened in increments. What I find often, what the common belief is, we need to measure it and see if it drives the results we want. So as an example, every book I write, I look at the desired outcome that we have, that people have, that I want, and then see what the actual outcome is. And if there's a discrepancy between desire and outcome, the method in the middle is the problem. So when I wrote Profit First, almost every entrepreneur I interview wants to be financially free, financial independence, however they define that, but that's a big part of what constitutes their dream. There's other parts too. But then I say, well, what's the formula we follow, which is taking our profit last? It's the bottom line of the year end. Well, what's the outcome? And it's pretty dire. A very small percentage of businesses are sustainably profitable. Most are on the brink of going under. So when the desire does not match the outcome, I look at the method, and that's when I change Profit First. Well, when it came to great leaders, the common theme was, I want to recruit top talent. I want to retain the best people. I want to raise the bar. And when it comes to those components, there isn't one solution we apply. There's many, and I talk about those in the book. But one experience myself, I was always told, you got to have this compelling corporate mission. If you want to rally the troops, you want to get everyone excited, how are you going to change the world? And what are the goals and milestones that express that? So I had a forensics business back in the day, computer crime investigation. My company was growing, and I thought it was genius at the time. Like, I'm so smart. We got the Enron trial because we got the Enron trial. We did the defense analysis for the Enron trial. So the FBI, the CIA, the ATF, they were doing the prosecution work. We were working with Kenneth Lay, Andrew Fastow. Those were clients of ours. And I thought when we got that case, like, oh my God, I know everything about forensics, and clearly the best come to me. No, in retrospect, I had no control over the Enron case happening. It so happened that one person heard of our name through another. It was luck, but I attributed it to myself. Well, I sat down after we got that case. I said, oh my gosh, if we just do 3 more of these, we make these couple strategic moves, we can achieve $10 million in revenue this year for my business. And up to that point, I've never achieved that kind of revenue. That was a game changer. So I called we had a brick and mortar business. I called my colleagues together. We had about 30 folks there, and with total cheese and flair. I'd written, before they came in, on a whiteboard, $10 million in like bubble letters, like the really big ones. I took a big sticky note, one of those big, huge Post-notes, and covered over so I could do the grand reveal. Shamefully, I queued up Eye of the Tiger by Survivor. Just, because any good reveal has that,
Of course.
It's the perfect song for it.
And I think, Jeff, you're a guitarist, I think, right?
Ish, yes.
Ish, okay, you're a guitarist, ish. Yeah, me too. So that's an easy song. Just digga, 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 digga. So you hear that, and there's a couple of power chords in there. And I got the music playing there. I have Patty. I say, at the right time, turn up the volume to get people excited. I'm going to do the reveal. And I made some cheesy statements. I can't remember what it was, that this is the year that we transform the industry and people are going to be represented with the truth and blah, blah, blah. And this is the year that we're going to do $10 million in revenue. And with great flair, rip it off. I even did the classic guru move with the hand clap and bow my head, all bobbling around and waiting for people to go crazy, like to lose their minds. It was silence. I'm like, what's going on? And people just shuffled out of the office back to their desks. Patty came up to me. And it was a transformative moment. It was brutal, but I needed it. And she said, Mike, that's your dream. You want $10 million. You get the bigger house or the new car or whatever it is, but that means something to you. She said, what about our visions for ourselves? And it became this wake-up call that every human being, we all have a intention or plan for ourselves, a dream for ourselves. A great leader cares greatly about everyone's dreams. It's about team accomplishment. It's not about, oh, the company's going to do this. What the company's going to do is my dream as the owner. That's what I want for selfish me. But what does everyone else want? Today, I know Jenna's looking to buy a new house. And so is Aaron, ironically. Their houses get flooded. They live both near rivers. Kelsey wants to learn to speak Spanish. Jake is looking for a job in artificial intelligence. Like, I know what everyone is on their dream list. And by recognizing this, I realized that my responsibility as a leader is to keep their vision for themselves in front of them, to inspire that and support it. I can't, it does not Make-A-Wish Foundation. I can't, or shouldn't, I should say, provide that for individuals because we're all on a journey for accomplishment. But my job is to prioritize the significance of that. And reciprocity kicks in, and they'll in turn likely want to support my dream. And that was one of many reveals of moving from struggling leader to a more competent one.
That's so fascinating. This is actually one of the areas I really wanted to dive into with you, was around this sort of management of people through their dreams. And I don't even know if it's really the right word, management, because it's like inspiring them through figuring out what it is that their dreams are. And one of the things you mentioned in the book is that some people have a hard time even dreaming, right? You might bring to them like, hey, what is your dream? And for them to link what their dream is to your being in your company and succeeding at a high level and being all in, as you say, what are some of those first steps for someone who might have a team that they want to start implementing this kind of dream motivation program into their business and their teams?
First, let me predicate this. There is an extraordinary book out there on the subject called The Dream Manager by an author, Matthew Kelly, that speaks to protocol around this. I shout him out in the book too, so that's a must read. I interviewed a company called Jancoa, and as my understanding is, because in Matthew's book, he does not reveal the company he interviews, but I think it may be the same company. There's other companies doing this, but Jancoa is a janitorial company in, oh my gosh, it slips my mind now. I want to say the Detroit area, but don't quote me on that. The time I interviewed them, they had about 600 employees. This was post-pandemic. Prior to that, they even had 700 or 800 employees. I called the co-founder, Mary Miller. She founded the place with her husband, and they started this program. They called it the Dream Manager, hence the book of Matthew Kelly's. And she said, she goes, Mike, I want you to know, I've never met a person that dreams of one day becoming a janitor. She goes, but everyone has a dream. And the job of an organization is to understand what their dreams are, what their personal vision is, but also realize that many of us lose the ability to dream. You know, in kindergarten, we're great dreamers. I love Spider-Man. I was dying to figure out how to swing from trees and working on inventions and so forth. That would get me there one day. But at a certain point, for me, it became silly. And then there's societal pressure. You kind of get mocked because you're wearing a Spider-Man costume to school and so forth. And all of a sudden, there's a societal pressure to comply and fit in. And dreaming gets squelched, I believe, to some degree. And we forget how to do it. It's more about compliance than it is expression. So what she shared is that we need to, first ourselves, learn how to dream again. And many of us are in a compliance mode. We don't think we are, but look at your peers and so forth, and ask yourself, are you doing more of what my peers expect of me and so I can fit into this group, or am I doing more of a natural expression of who I am? Do I really feel joyous? That's the definition of it. So she goes to these employees of hers and says, what's your dream? And there's two common answers. I don't have one. The other one is I want to win the lottery. So you have these two extremes. We have to then explore that. So if the response is, I want a lottery, well, what would you do if you won the lottery? And that's where you start kind of scratching this out. Other people say, I don't have a dream. A technique is to simply say, where do you see yourself in 3 years? Where do you want to be in 3 years? And you start giving people a little bit of guardrails around this, and they can start thinking about it. There's also a safety factor, because if I tell you I want to be Spider-Man when I grow up, it's laughable. You may make faces at me or just say, oh, sure, this guy's a weirdo, and ignore me. So I know the social consequence. So it's very risky for people to put out their true dreams. I have a buddy who's a financial manager, a wealth manager. And he said, Mike, if I had all the money in the world, honestly, I want to be a baseball coach because, for minor leagues. But I know that's a joke, and I can't ever do it. And I feel that's such a shame. He's such a good human being. He should be a coach in the minor leagues, but he's embarrassed to share it. So we just have to give people comfort. You do it by first sharing and revealing some of your dreams. You do it by starting small. You do it by forming small, intimate groups. Maybe have 4 or 5 people and just let people talk and explore. Because sometimes I hear a dream of someone else. I'm like, oh yeah, that's one I can grab over into my suite of dreams.
Yeah, I in my previous company where I worked selling knives, basically, and people have heard about that on the podcast. But Matthew Kelly came and spoke to our management staff one year. Yeah, and so and we were it was at our conference in Disney, and so he was doing the dream manager at that time, and during that talk, we all came up with a list of at least 100 dreams, for example, right? And it is one of those things that as you start to get people opening up to the idea of, not dreaming like a bank manager, but like dreaming with lots of possibility, you get them thinking in this free way. Then there's an opportunity to narrow it down to what is achievable for you in your company, or what can you do for those people, and say, okay, let's say buying a house, that could be something that you work out over a certain amount of time. Would you say you go that granular? Like, do you have someone in your company that is dedicated to managing the dreams or helping people with their dreams on a week to week or month to month basis, say like saving for their first house or getting to that next level?
We do. I'll show you something. It's kind of personal. I'm going to pull it. I know that we're doing a podcast here, but I'll show you a visual and I'll explain it. The start of every year, our team, now give you context, I have a small business. So there's 8 employees at this office. Collectively, we have 20 employees. I'm one of them, so 19. This is my dream board, if you will, or vision board is what we call it. Interestingly, in the top left, it says Daytona 500, which as we're recording, this is happening right now. I was there yesterday in Daytona, and for the Daytona 500, it got washed out. But that's one of my dreams, is to go there. So the race is happening right now, and now it's got to go next year. Every one of my colleagues draws this out. First thing to note is there is no dream is bigger or better than another. So buying a house or going to Daytona 500 or experience beekeeping, that's another dream of mine. Those are all of equal significance. We draw this out as a team, and then we have a discussion around it. Outside my office, you can't see it, but the walls are high here. I'd say 12 feet high. It's an old building. On the other side of it is a barren tree, kind of like this one you can see behind me, this wooden one. We have a paper mache paper one out there, barren of leaves. But what we do is every time someone accomplishes one of their visions, they check it off. My sons want to go on the Bourbon Trail in Louisville. I don't drink really, but my boys like bourbon, so I'm going to enjoy some bourbons with my boys, and I can't wait for it. The day I get back, the next Monday, because every Monday we give an update, I'm going to be sharing with my team, say, did the Bourbon Trail, and celebrate it. Then what I do is you fill out a leaf and put it on there, and you put a leaf on the tree. This tree has blossomed. There's so many leaves up there. One of them, and it gets me emotional, says cancer-free 5 years now. It's a big dream of one of my colleagues, and that's up there, and we celebrate collectively. And what's so interesting is it emboldens all of us to think more and more for ourselves, to be more connected with what we desire for ourselves, what our self-expression is. There's so many leaves up there that at the beginning of this year, I pulled Amy, one of my colleagues, aside, and said, I think we got to take these leaves down and start anew. And she goes, no. She's like, we're not taking any of these leaves down. She's like, now we got to start planting flowers. So that's our next thing. We get these little paper flowers that are sprouting from the ground. And I think after that's going to be birds and clouds. I don't know what else to put on these walls. It's becoming packed. But this public recognition and acknowledgement, I think, is so atypical. The traditional organization is do what you're told, generate for the organization, and your life is your life. I think we've transcended that now. And the great businesses are actively embracing the holistic person, embracing their dreams, embracing their desires and wants, recognizing it publicly. I think a great company, everyone's accomplishing what they aspire to accomplish.
Mike, one of the things I heard you say that was a dream for some of your employees. One of them that I thought I heard go by was someone wanted to work in AI, developing AI or in some sort. And so to me, that's a dream that's probably outside of their current role with you, probably outside of your company. That to me is an interesting thing because obviously this person feels safe in expressing to you and to the company that I have these aspirations to grow beyond this position, to leave this company one day, which I would celebrate that psychological safety that you've created. But could you just speak a little bit about that?
And that's exactly the phenomena. So that's on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We have physical safety. And then right after that becomes an emotional, relational, psychological safety. We want to feel safe in our environment. It's ironic if we suppress people's comfort emotionally, their performance degrades. So we need to create an environment where people can fully express themselves with absolute comfort without the fear of repercussion. They actually become better performers. It's comfort. When I walk into the office here, it's radically different than it was 20 years ago. I used to walk in my company, my colleagues, if they were talking in a group, they'd quickly pretend they were working again or scramble back to work. Now I come in and there's a conversation going on. I get a, hey, Mike, and they're still in the conversation, which is a massive victory. They don't feel this pressure of compliance. I was saying when we're forced to comply, we'll seek to defy. There's always a counter pressure. If you force compliance upon people, they bring this counter pressure. Well, I think one vignette or example of this self-expression when it comes to employment beyond the person looking for AI, that was Jake. I had a colleague, Lisa, here. And Lisa was serving as my personal assistant, mostly scheduling, email management, and so forth. And we're talking about her dreams. And she says, I want to be a professional firefighter. I just feel called to help people in this capacity. She served as a volunteer. And so we spent 6 months with her, encouraging her, supporting her in the interview process while keeping her employed. And what was so interesting is during that process, she was actively helping us recruit the next person. What we have to realize as leaders is that everyone's in a transitional state. It's a folly to think that someone's going to come and work for you and you alone for the rest of their life. It may not have worked in the 50s, but that isn't going to happen much now. So great leaders help people in their growth to what they ultimately want to do, and they go through the company. But it's a fluid experience of growing. Some people I interviewed shared with me, they said, but you know what, if I help people grow into what they aspire to be, if I help them learn and expand, they may leave. And that's true. But if you don't help people grow, they will stay because they have to stay and they aren't growing. And now you have an underproductive crew. You have a suppressed crew. And so therefore you're defeating the productivity from your company because you're suppressing your team. Lisa ended up, she works in Georgia now. She works at a fire department for a airport. I don't recall which one it was. It's not Atlanta, but it's one of the secondary airports in that area and is loving it. We have an annual retreat that we do as a company. We don't go to Costa Rica typically, but we did something up in on the beaches in Massachusetts, out near Nantucket, Cape Cod area. And Lisa calls about a month before and says, hey, can I come to the retreat? This is she's already been working at her airport for 4 or 5 months at this point. And we're like, we'd love to have you there. She goes, I'll pay my own way. I'll pay for all my lodging and my travel. I just want to give back. And she spent 4 days at the retreat with us, giving insights of what it was like as an employee, what's like as an employee at a new company, things that we can learn from and improve our organization, things that we're doing well that we didn't know. And to me, that was the ultimate accolade of we're doing something right by helping everyone here grow.
I think it's so fascinating that the way you put it is like, some people, they might quit, right, and leave to go pursue their dream, right? And that's in alignment because they're growing. But it's so much worse if they quit and stay. That's the real bad thing that happens when, we've probably all seen it or heard it. People go into their first day on the job, and you even talk about this in the book, and how that first day on the job doesn't meet their expectations or their excitement, or doesn't align to them having been set up for success in some capacity. And so from that moment on, people have screwed it up. They quit and stay. I was wondering if you could talk about how do we screw up the first day for some people, and maybe what do you do to make sure that it doesn't get screwed up in a first day when you hire a new person?
We got to talk about the significance of the first day. It's that first impression. Chances are both you guys know the first time you met your significant other. Chances are both you guys know what that first day was like at your last employer, whatever it may have been. The first day of college, the first day of high school. We remember the first. We also often remember the last, but the stuff in between gets very clouded. Well, with employment, what is shocking to me, and when I say shocking, because I did this and thought it was the right thing, was the first day is about paperwork. It's about seeing if they show up on time or not, but I'm too busy to care for them. Just get their stuff done, and they're going to learn trial by fire. You're going to learn on the job. That's what I thought was a good first day. I experienced that. In fact, when I sold one of my companies, it was a Fortune 500. I'd never really been an employee, at least in a corporate environment of any capacity before. The first day was miserable. It was just paperwork and being ignored. The question I got asked when I came home that night, and the question you guys were asked after your first job, and everyone gets asked by a loved one or a friend or a family member, by someone, is, how was your first day? And I remember saying to my wife, I was ignored. It was actually pretty horrible. I don't even know who I report to. It was just lots of paperwork. Maybe tomorrow will be better. That was my response, being ignored. Imagine this, and this is now what we do, and we've been doing this consistently. The first day should be the celebration. It's ironic. It's usually the last day. They're retiring. Hey, big party, big celebration, and we're pushing out the door of the celebration. We should be welcoming them with a celebration. So the first day here is there is no paperwork. We take care of that prior and post to the first day employment. That is surely not your first day. The first day is not being ignored. The first day is being embraced. So you come in, and we even do this remotely too, but if you come in physically, we're sitting, the whole team is stopping work for an hour, and we're just going to do a get to know you, icebreaker. We're going to have a little celebratory stuff. Then whoever your direct manager is, Kelsey's our president. She will probably be the one, but you'll work with her for a few hours and just getting to know you and so forth. Then you're going to start learning a little bit about the job. Then we're going to go to lunch together. Then you're going to spend more time with the team. And by 3:00, we'll be sending you home with another celebration. Part of that is, and this is a very tactical thing that works, is you get a basket. And the basket is a gift basket, but it's not the generic like popcorn and here's the company mug with the company logo. It's personalized stuff. So maybe the Corday came on board recently. Corday got a nice mug and it says, best employee ever, Corday. And there was stuff personalized to her. She said, came out in conversations, she likes bath salts or something like that. We said, we found this great collection of bath salts. But the most important thing in this regard was we found out her husband, Brian, happens to like bourbon. So we said, let's get the finest bourbon for Brian. So now here's what happened. And we put it in a package, wrapped it up, and there was a card on it that said, to Brian. Corday comes home. And I know the number one question Corday is going to get asked by a loved one, family member is, how's your first day? She gets home. Brian says, so how's your first day? And her response was, it was pretty unbelievable. We spent time together. They celebrated my first day. I got this great gift basket. Look at all these amazing things I got. And by the way, Brian, you got a gift too. And Brian's like, I got a gift? Yeah, here you go. And on there, he opens the card. It says, Brian, we know that a decision of this significance is never made alone. Thank you for supporting in Corday and working for our organization. We heard you like bourbon. We hope you like this one. And he opens it up and there's this bourbon. He's blown away. Next morning, when they wake up, Brian's like, go to work. You work for the best company on the planet. I love them. We as employers are winning cheerleaders or detractors at home. The most important person in the relationship is not necessarily even the employee. It's the person that has their ear. Are we winning them over or not? And that's what we do to win them over.
When I was recruiting salespeople in my old job, it was very challenging to explain to them you're going to go sell knives, and then they go home and explain to their parents that they're going to go sell knives. and the typical response is like, no, you're not, or how are you going to do that? And they can't explain it. They've never seen the product. And so inevitably you would get a lot of people not showing up or quitting or doing, all those things because it was a recruiting business. And so getting like the impact, we never took for granted, I guess, the impact that the home family has upon the productivity of the sales rep. And now it was straight commission, so it's a very different situation than just saying having an employee. However, learning that lesson early on, what conversations do you think you want them having at home about the job? It's like, oh, you're staying late so much all the time, right? And it's like a battle against the work versus, wow, I totally get it. They're all in on you and you're all in on them. So that's a totally different conversation if you've won over the people at home. And I think so many employers just don't even think about it or don't even consider that can have a big impact on the productivity and satisfaction of a person who's a great part of your team.
Yeah, most employers don't think about it. And it's the ultimate sin. I never thought about it. There's another conversation that happens too. And it's when there's a gathering, your employee and their friends. So they're going out to the baseball game or going for a bike ride or spending some time together at a party or whatever it is. Question is, how's work going? We, since realizing this, and Kelsey, our president, is extraordinary. I think she is the definition, in my opinion, of a great leader. What's happened is these conversations that are happening at the party, the feedback I'm getting is, my employer is great, is what our team is saying. Kelsey is amazing. Working for this company is great. We have people applying for positions. We don't have any positions open. We have people applying. And in this market, that's not so common. We had 2 or 3 international people. We had one person from Spain come and work for us as an intern just to experience what the environment is like here. And this word, it gets out there. I remember some college website where you could review professors. I don't remember the name of it. Like, this
Rate
is
Your Professor.
What's it called?
I think it was just Rate Your Professor.
Rate Your Professor.
Yeah.
It's genius because it's an expression of what was already happening. People were going to campus. What class should I take? Oh, dude, avoid Professor so-and-so. They suck. Well, the same thing's happening. Avoid this company. They suck. I'm trapped there. I'm trying to get the hell out of this place. That conversation's absolutely happening. There's a rate your employer happening. If it's online or not, it's happening.
Glass ceiling. That's the site.
Oh, there's a site called Glass Ceiling?
Yeah, it's just Glass Ceiling is a place where people go and anonymously or somewhat anonymously rate their employees, usually after leaving, usually when they're unhappy.
Yeah.
But absolutely.
Yeah. So it exists and it exists in social circles. Even if you're not listed on Glass Ceiling, you're listed in people's minds, right? People are talking about it. So, and that's not just one on the first day, but starts at the first day.
Early on, when I was starting my business, I heard some advice from a marketing guru who I actually is really brilliant and correct about so many things. But one of the things I heard him say several times, and I took to heart, and it held me back for many years. And it was that he said that employees will make your life a living hell. So whatever you can do, don't hire anyone. So I didn't. And so then when I did, I had this incredibly small, tiny team, and we were way understaffed. And it took years and years and years for me to figure out just how critical, if you want to grow, it is to build a team. So yeah, I was very delayed in that. And then speaking to the point you just made about attracting amazing people, then I went through this whole hiring, figuring it out, it's a long journey, figuring out I wasn't a manager, figuring out how to hire a manager, how to be a leader instead of a manager. And then realizing, really it's just like out in the marketplace, we might be competing for clients. Even more critical is competing for team members you call them colleagues, I call them team members. And to the extent that we can do that, we're either going to win or lose, because you can't do it all alone. And Mike, just to back up, we have a wide range of folks on this that listen to us, and a lot of them are just starting out. They might be looking at their first VA or the first person or two, but a lot of them are pretty advanced, have fairly large teams. And so, like, that idea of to be competitive, that you can any single person can only do so much, and if you get the right people, they're not going to make your life a living hell. They'll allow you to accomplish way more than you could ever do on your own or with a minuscule team, and that you are, in essence, competing in this marketplace for the best people. And, when I think about your last question about, enabling people to grow through your organization and even leave your organization, it's like, it's none of us love losing or having someone leave, that, an amazing employee leave. I've always thought, like, well, that is there's this, in one sense, it's energetic. If we want to get woo-woo, energetic to the universe, if you're helping people attain their dreams, it can only be good for you. But also there's very real, if people see a growth path, then you are going to attract the best people. And yes, just naturally, some of those folks are going to grow through your organization, or all of them.
And they put the word out for you when, once they leave. The most common refrain I hear among small business owners, and this is what I say, I wish my employees would act like owners. I wish my colleagues would act like owners. Well, to have someone act like an owner, that presumes they're an owner. And so perhaps you're finding people that are on a pathway to ownership. So one approach is to look for people who want to own or do something like you're doing, and basically make your business a glorified internship of that. I worked with a company we consulted, was a hair salon, and the salon struggled to get beauticians and people to do haircuts and so forth. And he said, well, why don't we make this a feeding ground? Why don't we look at people that are aspiring to have their own business but doesn't have the experience under their belt? And why don't we say, work here for 5 years, but we're going to teach you more than just the process. We're going to teach you everything behind the scenes. And on year 5, we're going to even send you clients, and we'd like to share in your success. We're going to take 10% equity. We're going to help you launch. So what this company did, by supporting people in fulfillment of their dreams, they actually expanded the company with this. This isn't a one person leaves and there's a detriment. We always have to look, what's the opportunity where everyone can get elevated even further? And by setting up the structure, they effectively started a franchise model, and everyone's coming out ahead.
Right. They become almost like a little Berkshire Hathaway.
Yeah, itty bitty one. Itty bitty.
One of the things, so in the book, you have this acronym, FASO, and you just mentioned one of the O is ownership. The first one is the F is fit.
Yeah.
And you spoke to, that's someone that fits in that role. And also in the book, there's this, you mentioned when you're talking about fit, it's like, it's not about people, it's about the roles.
Yes.
And filling the roles. The roles are constant, the people are not constant.
Right.
And with a team of your size, currently, if you got 8 people in the office, then that's small enough where, well, there's an incredible amount of cross-functional.
Totally.
Everyone's cross-functional.
Correct.
But also people are wearing more than one hat, I would imagine.
Correct.
Within a team of 8. So, and then I would think that those roles, the fit piece, that's can be a bit fluid. Someone might be doing A and B, but the next person you hire would be more A and C. How do you manage that?
I think the challenge that I had in the past, actually, I know it's the challenge, and so many businesses still struggle with, of all size, but small businesses really get hamstrung by this one, is we match talent to title. So we say, I had a business where I had a receptionist. I said, I need a receptionist. And I said, all the duties for the receptionist include things like answering the phone and greeting walk-ins when that existed back in the day, and also data entry and invoicing and so forth, because people aren't always walking in. You had a list of 10 or 15 things. The person we hired for it, she was great at greeting customers. She actually built relationships with customers who wanted us to come in just to spend a little time with her, and they really got ingratiated with our business because of her. She was, admittedly, not so great at the invoicing and the detail. Now, I had another person, his name was Rob, and He filled our sales role. We needed a rainmaker. And he could close deals. He was great at it. But a horrible farmer, meaning once we had a relationship, just did not sustain his relationships. In fact, often harmed them. So he was a closer, but not someone that could facilitate relationships. Well, looking at that, it's like, oh my gosh, my receptionist is a farmer. Rob actually was really good at data entry and data tracking. That's why he was such a good closer. He knew when people were on the brink of a decision based upon data analytics. Like, he knows the numbers and can crunch. Why don't we get him doing invoicing? We transitioned people to doing the tasks. And this is the key. Match talent to task, not to title. And people can express themselves fully. Now, there is a challenge. If they already have titles, there can become what's called entitlement or loss aversion. And so it's telling your sales guy, you're no longer a sales guy. You're our data entry person, can be an ego check. And so that has to be navigated very tactfully and carefully. But we were able to do it. But our people flourished. Primary way we do is we don't have titles. We avoid that as much as possible. Sometimes it's necessary. We bring people on and we simply say we have functions or tasks we need you to do. So we're a titleless organization. We do have a president, that's Kelsey, because there's got to be a president. But everyone else, like they call me author guy thingy because like it's kind of unclear what the title is. So that's my code, author guy thingy. But my roles are spokesperson, team cheer, the office cheerleader. So I have certain functions that my job is to serve. The old model of titles builds this pyramid structure: president, long line down, CEO, CF, the C-suite, and so forth. When you remove the titles as the primary focus and it goes function or task talent, you start building a web-like structure. The last thing I want to share why it's so dangerous for small business to use titles is you can fall in a trap. And I fell into this trap. As a small business, my prior company, like I told you, we grew to 30 people at one point. And I said, we need a CFO. I'll tell you, if you have a business with 30 people, you don't need a CFO. Maybe you need a controller or comptroller. You probably don't need a CFO. But we brought in this guy and said, you are now our CFO. And he was predominantly doing bookkeeping and some financial analysis, but almost all bookkeeping. Well, and we're paying him $50,000 or $60,000 for this responsibility. But we wanted a CFO because we want to look big to the outside world. Sure enough, a year later came back and said, you know what? I looked at some job ads for CFOs, and he goes, you wouldn't believe what a CFO gets paid. He goes, minimally like $750,000 a year. And maximally these guys make $2-3 million a year if you're a CFO. And he looks at Amazon, all these different companies. And I go to him, like, you're not a CFO. It's your title here, but you're not really a CFO. Forget it. He had associated with the title, and appropriately so. I think if I was called a CFO, I believe that's who I am too. And he said, well, you got to pay me appropriately as a CFO because I am your CFO, $750 or I'm gone. And so he left. And it was devastating to the company because he was really good at what he did, but he wasn't that title. So he's got to be very careful. Small businesses arbitrarily give out big titles because it looks like it inflates the organization, but it actually does the reverse.
Yeah, you talk about your book about how people get a sense of identity from their job, right? And I think that's sort of what you're running up against with somebody there too, is that there's a lot more to a job than just doing the tasks. People get this sense of meaning and identity. And I know there's no real silver bullet for, say, like picking the right person who's going to be, able to align their identity to your work. But do you have some strategies for someone who might be, a lot of our people are just starting off, they're solopreneurs that have been building, and they're going to need to hire their first pieces of the team, right? What are some tactics or strategies for being able to know who to pick to add to a team?
When I go around and do my speaking events and stuff, I have an opportunity to speak to a lot of micro enterprise. These are companies that are solopreneurs, maybe one employer. I'll ask the audience, who here has a personal assistant? And I would say maybe 20% of the hands go up. It's okay. Now I ask the rest of the group, I say, if you don't have a personal assistant, raise your hand nice and high so we all can see it. And 80% of the hands go up. And I say, well, keep those hands up because you do have a personal assistant and it's you. If you don't have a personal assistant, you are the personal assistant. And what I argue every micro enterprise needs to do first as an employer is hire a personal assistant. And it's not even for what you think. Because most people say if you hire a personal assistant, they can take work off your plate and do these elements that are distracting. And that's all true, but that's not the primary benefit. The primary benefit is you learn how to delegate, actually how to manage. Most sole proprietors are the technician, as Michael Gerber would say, the person that does the work that you're technically sophisticated in. You're doing the sales call, but you don't know how to manage people. So hiring a personal assistant is not about them taking load off you. It's you learning how to assign out load so that it can be carried for you. And because most people don't know why to hire a personal assistant to learn how to manage and delegate, most people go about it wrong. So what we do is we say, I'm going to delegate an easy task that's busy work for me. And this way I get some weight off of me. And it's easy for this person to learn. But that is not the task to delegate. The task to another concept they say is I'm going to pick something that's difficult and frustrating and assign that out. And that's not the task to delegate. The one to delegate is the one you naturally feel called to do or want to do the most as busy work. The one that's the distraction. The one that's as easy to do. I can respond to my emails like it's a no-brainer. Because the problem with that work is we feel productive in doing it, and it does have some degree of benefit. There's these short intermediate wins, but it prevents us from doing the big work. But it's our natural tendency to go there. It's actually a sense of relief. If we assign out what gives us relief, now we have to learn how to move to the higher level. So most entrepreneurs will assign out all the tasks around that busy work, but will keep the busy work because it gives them relief. And therefore, they never learn how to delegate. Delegate is the discipline to stop doing what you can do, but what you shouldn't do. That's why we give out the easy work. So for small businesses, that's inevitably where I start. Hire someone as a personal assistant. For bigger businesses, we go through what's called potential analysis. You can recruit people based upon potential. I have a whole diatribe on this. I don't want to go into it unless you guys want to explore it, but I can explain how you recruit people on potential as opposed to experiential ability, resumes, or innate ability, which is Enneagram, Myers-Briggs. Those are all great tools, but we're missing the big piece.
Hey, Launch family, are you curious what Mike meant by hiring based on potential? Well, so were we, and we asked him about it, and we got into this big discussion around how to hire people who are awesome based on their potential. And I think you'll really, really dig it. We had to cut it for time, but we wanted to make sure you still got it if you were looking for that. So we wrapped it up in a nice bonus, and all you got to do to get it is text us bonus one. That's the word bonus with one at the end to the number 1-888-530-0282. And again, we'll send this clip right out to you. You can watch it on your phone. So text bonus with the number one at the end to 1-888-530-0282. And you'll get to check out that discussion with Mike. Now, let's get back to the episode. I read another thing in your book. It's awesome. There's so many things that I loved about this book. So if you haven't got it, go get it. We're going to link to all this in the show notes as well, by the way. But one of the things that you talk about, or here's something we had heard, I guess, out in the world is hire slow and fire fast.
Yeah.
But you kind of talk differently about this. You say hire slow, fire slower. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about why and what that means for people who are running their own company.
There's an adage, it's very popular, hire slow, fire fast. What the assumption is that you took the proper time to vet an individual, make sure they're a fit. If you find they're not a fit, you better clear them out of the organization. But in that, if someone's not fit for the organization, there must have been something with the hiring process that was askew. You probably didn't assess people properly. And the most common hire slow I see, particularly small business, is run an ad on Indeed, do 3 or 4 interviews before I'm overwhelmed, and the best of the 3 is the person I'm going to hire. There's this horrible hiring practice, and therefore someone's not a fit. And then we remove them, and the churn's horrible. If you're firing quick, you're probably not hiring properly. And so I'm a big proponent for these workshops and these different programs. There's other ways to vet people too if you follow a traditional path of interviewing. But we got to make sure that they're fit, we're matching tasks and talent and so forth. But the fire slow is this. What we do in our office, every employee, including myself, has a one-to-one meeting. Again, we're only 8 employees, so we're all dealing with Kelsey, but my other location, we have 12 people there. So we have 2 managers running that. And what we do is we meet with every employee once a week for a one-on-one meeting just to check in. How are they doing in life? How are they doing in work? And when I say this, people are like, oh my God, once a week meeting with every employee, 8 employees, that's overwhelming. I can never do that. These meetings, in the beginning, sometimes they are long, but usually they're 10 or 15 minutes just to check in. Sometimes they're a little bit longer. Sometimes they're very personal. What's going on in your personal life? Other times it's a little bit of business work. Usually it's a blend of the two. But what's happening is micro adjustments. Most organizations, when it comes to the termination, it's the annual review. All these problems were accumulating over the year. It's revealed to the employee. The employee's like, I had no idea I was doing this wrong. Well, you were, and you got to get out of here. Or the employee becomes cancerous, and it happened in my organization recently. That employee, for whatever reason, starts becoming detrimental to the organization and tries to undermine other people. And sometimes that can last for months or years. How am I going to navigate this? I get the facts, what's going on. And now you've undermined so many employees because you allowed a cancerous situation to perpetuate. These daily or these weekly meetings, these weekly check-ins mitigate that. If something's going askew, we can make micro adjustments. If something repeats over and over again within 3-4 weeks of meetings, that's 4 meetings, we've talked to this person enough time, say, hey, this seems like it's not correcting itself. And then maybe it will have to result in termination. At the end of the day, it was an attorney who said this, I think her name was Nancy. She said, no one should ever be surprised when they're let go. Like no one should be surprised on that day. And that's the fire slower process, is making these little micro adjustments, micro awareness. When you do this, you'll be pleasantly surprised how often you can improve a circumstance because you've nipped it in the bud. And if something can't be resolved, how quickly you can get there because you've tried to make adjustments throughout and you say, listen, it's not improving. The next stage is we're going to have to depart ways. And then when the termination happens, it's much cleaner and much healthier. So that's what I mean by fire slower.
And it's a lot more safe for the employer too, because you've been tracking these things and knowing what it is that is actually a situation. Even I know it was a lawyer who said it, but that's probably from a legal standpoint a lot better for the employer as well.
You want to be judicial and appropriate in the process. There's no question about it. So it is. We too. It's funny. Just the vernacular is important too. We don't fire people. We move them to alumni status. I know it's a little bit of gamesmanship of words, but you were talking about identity earlier, and that's important. I shouldn't say no one, very few people are proud to get fired from a job. Maybe in retrospect, like that was the best thing that ever happened to me. But when it happens, I've been fired. It's tough on the ego. So we tell people, listen, this path isn't working for you. We don't have an opportunity for you to express your full potential here in the way it's going. We're probably best served by moving you to be an alumni of our organization. We'll help you in this transition. It's a little gamesmanship of the words, but it's much easier to digest and less confrontational.
Yeah, I love that.
So, Chris, since we're talking, we got a nice heavy topic here. Maybe we need a taco break at this point.
Yeah, no, where's it? After talking about fire and all that, let's do a quick 2-minute taco break. And sometimes this is a little longer than 2 minutes. But the way this works is I have some fun taco-related questions, and they start off kind of mild, and then they get steadily spicier. So, we're going to start off with some of the mild ones here.
And Mike, you have to realize I've been now asked, dozens of taco questions. So Chris is always going to the next level.
Oh my God. Your GI must be killing you with the spicy ones.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Let's start off with the easy ones, though. So my first taco question that we ask all of our people is, are you into hard shells or soft shell tacos?
I'm a soft shell guy.
We still have no one who's taken hard shell.
Oh, really? So there's no right and wrong answers here, but with that question, there is.
And hard shell is the wrong answer?
Apparently, yeah.
Apparently so, yeah. Yeah. I mean, a little crunch in the middle is nice, but it's too messy, the crunch.
Yeah. You need the soft outside the crunch, and that makes the perfect taco. But anyway, guacamole or no guacamole?
This is the one where there is definitely a wrong answer. The right answer is guacamole. The wrong answer is no guac. Now, I get the cilantro issue. I totally get that. I got my own family members. Some people are repulsed by cilantro. I love cilantro. I grow it. I can eat it raw. So I understand that, but you can make a good guac without cilantro. So
I agree with you on that one. I don't know if Jeff agrees with that one.
Yeah,
Our listeners know why.
You're no guac guy?
long-term listener. I've got a fairly significant avocado allergy, so
Oh, okay. Well, that's legit. Oh, and I never heard of that. Oh, wow.
yeah, there are some of us. There's not many, but there are some of us.
Okay. Costa Rica must have been a tough trip. That's all they serve.
No, there wasn't that much guac there. I mean, the thing is, if you're going to be allergic to something, and we've got a lot of food allergies in my family, but I only have avocados, and it's an easy one generally to avoid. So,
yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's like you don't say like, hey, that pizza, does it have any guac? I mean, does it have any avocado on it? Like,
right. If I see something green, I just ask.
Yeah. That's pretty
tomatillo or is that avocado?
Yeah.
It's like,
are you going to have a mild, medium, or spicy taco?
Spicy, but contextually spicy. There's spicy where I can't taste the flavor, and I'm like, my God. I like spice because I like the tingle. But I like the taste. My wife and I, we enjoy Indian cuisine, but I didn't realize we're eating the Americanized Indian food at these local places. One of my colleagues in the past is an Indian gentleman, and his wife and him invited my wife and I over for dinner, and they prepared a meal, authentic Indian food. And she says we reduced the spice level because we know as an American you're going to struggle with it. Both my wife and I almost fainted from the heat.
Oh, wow.
It was unbelievable. So I asked my colleague, his name was Sankara. I said, Sankara, why do you make it? Why is it so hot? And he says, you have to understand, in India, there's no air conditioning. And this may be accurate. He says, the spice makes you sweat and perspire. It actually cools you down outside. I'm like, oh, maybe that's why they make it so spicy. I don't know. That's what his explanation is.
All right, let's get to some spicier ones here. If you could eat a taco with any guitar god, since I know you're both guitar players, and I'm going to have Jeff chime in on this one too, who would that guitar god be?
So I recently discovered Buckethead.
Buckethead, that's a great one.
This guy is so friggin' innovative. I can't even comprehend how he does what he does. So Buckethead, and there's another guy named Tommy Morell who plays for Audio Slave. But I'd have David Gilmour there, John Denver, anybody that plays guitar like that. I'd love to have the whole mix. Johnny Cash.
And Chris, does this person have to be alive?
Let's make it alive or dead. Yeah, anybody.
Oh, alive or dead. Oh, yeah. Well,
yeah.
Okay. So I wouldn't say so. Definition guitar god is. I'm just going to expand that as well to. Someone who is just like an amazing musician, but because John Denver, I wouldn't put him as a guitar guy.
Yeah. He's not a guitar
clearly
guy.
Great songwriter. So,
yeah,
Mike, you've already expanded it. I'm going to go with Bob Marley.
Oh, wow, that would be cool.
Yeah,
be curious what he'd have on his tacos. Yeah,
marijuana.
yeah, exactly. Right.
Lots of marijuana. Yeah.
It's like Android.
Yeah.
I don't know I really don't know the Jamaican cuisine.
Oxtail, man. Oxtail, man. The Jamaican cuisine's amazing. It can be very spicy too.
But delicious too. Yeah.
So just a quick Jamaica story. I had speaking gigs in Jamaica. So I wasn't going to resorts. I was going to Ochos Rios and, throughout Jamaica. And so I was with a guide and we went over the mountain from Kingston to Ochos Rios, and you go through some very poor communities. And we're driving, and she's like, "Oh, I'm hungry. Let's pull over." So we pull over, and I'm about to get out of the car, and she goes, "Oh, don't get out of the car." And I thought it was a safety concern. I'm like, "Oh, that was stupid." She goes, "No. This is a drive-through." It was this little beat-up shack, and you just pulled up, and this woman was serving what's called saltfish. It was insanely good. It was a potato with just butter melting on it and this heavily salted fish that when you scoop through it, it was unbelievable. Probably one of the best meals I've had in my life was somewhere in the mountains of Jamaica.
My girlfriend is half Jamaican, and she consistently says, I have to make saltfish for you. And she hasn't done it yet. So after this, I'm going to talk to her about
saltfish, ackee fish. It's amazing stuff.
All right. Well, this one's a little bit more related to what we talked about. But if you had to recruit an unstoppable team for your taco truck, what kind of workshop would you run for them?
Well, okay. So it depends on what their core activity would be. So let's assume it's making tacos.
Yeah. Taco truck, small, dynamic team, lots of roles and probably cross functionality.
Yeah, and it depends on the quality, the type of product I want. I don't want to make a Taco Bell taco. I want to make a real Mexican taco, which is way different. You know, small, soft shell, where you can actually grab right off the grill. So first thing, I would find a great teacher for it. His name is Rodrigo Ladaga. He's a friend of mine. He lives in Monterrey, Mexico. I would ask him to come up and we'd be willing to teach. Then I would reach out to, if I have anyone in my community that's taco eaters, because inevitably, the customer or consumer of your product or offering is often your best representative of it too. So I'd reach out to them and say, we're doing a workshop on making this. And we have a guy who's a taco aficionado. I may also, a little trick, this is like the red M&Ms that Van Halen did, for contractual, I'm sure you guys have heard that, for contractual compliance. I'd probably have escamoles served or something like that, which is a more exotic dish for the American consumer, but someone who really gets it would say, oh yeah, that's me. I'd have these little elements that speak to the authenticity. And then I just watch people make tacos, see how into it they are. Are they enjoying it? And I look for indicators. So there's some people that kind of go into battle mode. It's like, let me just produce and produce and produce. Again, this is a learning event, so they don't know they're being considered. That's the key. It's always educational. But there's some people that are competing to beat others. There's other people that are embracing. So I'd be looking for people that are like trying to help out others in this event. And the helpers are likely better for my team. And the last thing is, are they having fun? I want to see people laughing and joking around. And I actually would seek out mistakes too. When someone makes a mistake, how do they respond to that? Are they laughing through it? Are they fixing it? Are they holding themselves accountable but not abusing themselves and calling themselves stupid? Are they recovering from it? So I look for those intangible behaviors that demonstrate the most potential.
Amazing. That's awesome.
And I lace my tacos with marijuana, and that way,
great team building.
That way, everyone's like, "These are the best tacos, man." I don't know why, man, but they are.
Like, it sounds like your team is. Well, you mentioned 8 people and then 20 people. My team, we're actually close to 40 people, and we are virtual, and we've always been virtual. It sounds like at least your 8 people are in person. And we also are I think we're like at 6 countries we're in and 5 continents. And so just thoughts, especially now in the last few years, of virtual teams versus physical teams.
Yeah, so we have a virtual crew too. So it's 20 people collective. So there's 8, we have 2 physical locations and 12 at our other location. But of the team, I would say 4 people are permanently virtual, and over 70% are in a hybrid where they could come to work, but also choose times to work at home. So that flexibility, one thing that's interesting is it seems that productivity increases when people are remote, but connectivity decreases, the exchange of ideas and thoughts. And so the hybrid environments seem to be best. For our permanently remote people, we have minimally semi-annual, so twice a year, retreats. And it's costly. We got one person in the Philippines, and my God, I had no idea. The travel costs are something, but the licenses and the protocol to get someone to come out of the Philippines is very difficult. It's very restricted. So that's been a costly endeavor, but it's so important. We as humans need that tactile experience, and there's yet anything to replace that. Maybe those Apple headset things will take over and fix that, but we need that tactile experience. The other component is we need what I call the remember whens. I find that the greatest trust building happens when my colleagues can share stories in reflection. So, I know, Jeff, you're big into biking, mountain biking and so forth. I strongly suspect when you go with your friends, or prior to going with your friends, if you've gone with them in the past, there's stories shared across the campfire or the coffee cup saying, remember when? And when we have those remember whens as a shared story, it reaffirms that connectivity. So we need to intentionally, deliberately as leaders, build these remember whens. And the only way I found to be able to do it effectively is when we have a tactile in-person experience. Now, we've done some stuff remotely where we do exercises, where we're trying to build connectivity. But because it's talking to a screen in front of a camera, the remember whens don't seem to come about as effectively. So it can be a little more expensive, but I really encourage folks to bring their teams in. And additionally, bring the tactile experience to them. So that welcome gift, that welcome box, your first day, if you work for us remotely, we have a courier deliver the box right at start time. So if you start at 9 o'clock in the morning, 9:01, we'll be on a Zoom meeting. You'll be talking with myself and maybe Kelsey. We did this with Maritza, one of our employees, a box delivered to your doorstep. And we'll say, hey, before we start this meeting, there should have been something delivered right about now. The courier confirms with us. We say, could you just go to your door and get it? And there's this box. And they're like, wow, and it's this big, tall box. In there is the basket, among other things. We say, hey, if you don't mind, could you open it? And they open it, and there's this welcome balloon, these helium balloons that come out and says, welcome, we're proud to have you on board. So there are ways to bring that tactile experience to them. It's not nearly as effective as face-to-face time, but that's the stuff like that is what we do.
For those mountain biking stories, there's actually a phrase, it's JRA, and it's like, which stands for just riding along. And it's usually when you're telling about your crash or how you broke your bike or something. JRA, just riding along, and then.
Right, is this a normal ride? Jeff, it's interesting, storytelling, the power and the stickiness and the connectivity it builds. I was out, I ride a bike. I don't go on technical courses and stuff like that. I would destroy myself, but I go off-roading a little bit. But I remember a story you told me, I was with my wife, and I recounted to her, of you, I think it was with two of your sons, and you ran into two girls or two young women who were lost, and the sun was setting. And you knew in your heart that they were in jeopardy, like they were going the wrong way. They were going into the woods as opposed to out. And you had to do your best sales call of all time. How do you persuade women to follow you when you could be a threat? And how do you navigate that? That story, it just sticks in my mind. Now, we didn't experience that together, so it's not a remember when. But what's interesting is when we have a shared story, that story starts building a connection permanently between us. So stories are sticky, and then when they're shared, they stay around permanently.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to think of, when you're building the stories of your team, of your organization, that those things are just what build a huge amount of culture.
Yeah. Folklore. I mean, new people come on, they get ingratiated with that. Yeah.
And doing hard things together, because, inevitably when you're building a business with you're doing hard things together. And that is, one of the most bonding things there is.
It reminds me of a story. I feel compelled to share it because it was funny. I interviewed that guy, Sankar, I told you, he was with my forensics business. I interviewed him for this book. This is now 20 years ago. And we start talking. I'm like, talking about the business. He goes, oh, Mike, remember when? So I'll just share the quick story with you. We had a situation. It was a forensic response. We had our team was in New Jersey. We had to get down to Virginia. So we flew everyone down, but I grabbed the van with all of our equipment so we can get our team on site. But no one was prepared for this. It was like a Friday, and we got dispatched immediately. So I even went around the office like, who can go? And we don't know how long we're going, and we got to leave now. So people took off without clothes, without anything. I got down there, and they were about 2 hours ahead of me. They already started work, bringing equipment in. I gave everyone food. I said, I'm going to go out and get everyone clothing. And there was like 6 people on the job. So I bought everyone a suitcase, bought everyone clothing. But one guy, his name was John, as a joke, I only got him for his underwear. I got G-strings. And when I came back to the team, I said, I was at Walmart. I got everyone clothing and underwear. They ran out of underwear. So John, this is all you have. And he wore these thong underwear for the next 4 or 5 days. And the team loved it. It was all in good humor, not to harm anyone. But a story like that stuck. This is now 20 years later. And he says, I'll never forget that. And how much fun we had and how John kind of leaned into it. Those are powerful shared stories.
Well, this has been so great, Mike. And I'd love for people to know how to find you and get to hear more from you. Do you have places where people can do that?
Well, let me first start with Absolute gratitude. Thanks both to you guys to spend so much time with me and to ask me about this stuff. It's a big deal to me, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Should people want to learn more about me, I'll give you the ultimate shortcut. Because my last name is Michalowicz and nearly impossible to spell, the domain is Mike Motorbike, as in a motorcycle. The irony is, never driven a motorcycle. I have no interest, therefore no potential to be a motorcyclist. It's the only G-rated nickname I've had in my entire life. I've got other nicknames. I can't buy those domains. So MikeMotorbike.com. All in is there. You can get free chapter downloads, all my books. I used to write for the Wall Street Journal. Those articles are up there too. Mike Motorbike.
Awesome. Awesome. And any final thoughts for our audience around recruiting, creating, and retaining great leadership and creating unstoppable teams?
This is not my saying, but I concluded the book, not the very close, but near the end of the book, I shared this. And I think this is what epitomizes great leadership. And I don't know the original author to attribute it to, so I'll just say anonymous. Good leaders make people believe in them. Great leaders make people believe in themselves. That's the final thought.
Well, Launch family, thanks again for listening, and we hope this conversation inspires you to dare to launch.